When you're implementing a certain exercise into your routine, you have to understand why you are putting that exercise into your routine. Are you doing it to get better at that exercise and move the most amount of weight on that exercise? Or are you doing that exercise so that you can get better at something else? Whether it's an athletic event, a power lift in the sport of powerlifting, bodybuilding, you're trying to hypertrophy a certain muscle group. All of these things have to be taken into account. You're not trying to move the most amount of weight on assistance exercises. Assistance exercises are there to assist whatever your main goal is. So for example, if you're doing weighted dips, let's start off with that. Are you trying to get better at the weighted dip? If so, that's fine. Just try and bring up the muscle groups responsible for that and move the most amount of weight you can on a dip. But if you're not, if you're using that to become better at pressing or hypertrophy your pecs, you have to perform the exercise in a certain way. If you start cheating and using leg drive and whatnot just to say, hey, I hit a PR on dips, and you're trying to hypertrophy your chest, maybe not the best decision. Another example would be board pressing. Board pressing is when you're doing a bench press to not your chest, but you have basically boards that are in the way to reduce the range of motion. Now, what does this do? It puts more stress on the triceps and helps the lockout. But you have to match the motor pattern that you would be doing in the bench press. So a lot of people make a mistake. If you're doing like a 3-board press, your elbows have to be in the same position it'll be than if you were bench pressing. So don't super tuck like this on board pressing, because that's not how you would be if there was no board. So you have to practice how you play, basically. You're not going to do something different on an assistance exercise if you're trying to bring up a main exercise. Because then what happens? You're just going to get better at board pressing. It's not going to carry over to your bench press. A lot of people think incline bench has to be set at a certain angle. But there's so many different things that you have to take into account. Your limb length, what you're trying to hit more. You're trying to hit more shoulders. You're trying to hit more chest. The angle of the incline will vary based on what you're trying to bias or hit more. So those are things you have to think about. Good mornings. Now, good mornings can be done a ton of different ways. There's powerlifting style good mornings, and there's more, let's say, hypertrophy style good mornings when you're going deeper, maybe working on flexibility. A powerlifting good morning, you'll stop a bit higher because you want it to mimic your deadlift leverages. So it's not going to look like a perfect bent over exercise. A lot of people go, oh, good mornings are ego lifting, but you don't know, what is that person trying to accomplish? Pull-ups. Pull-ups is the big one, and I'm going to do a whole video on this. A lot of people think overhand wide grip pull-ups hit your lats. Now, maybe for some people they do, and that's great. But in my experience, I've noticed that wide grip overhand pull-ups are more of an upper back exercise, which could be for the fact that when I was just up and coming, young, I would do these heavy-ass dumbbell rows that would basically bias my upper back. And then I would do for lats, wide grip overhand pull-ups. And it could be why to this day, my upper back is way more developed than my lats in proportion, because of the fact that I thought I was doing an exercise that biases lats, but it doesn't. It actually biases your upper back. If you want to bias your lats with pull down and pull up variations, I suggest you go with a closer grip or even an underhand grip. So technically chin-ups would be better. Everyone thinks, oh, chin-ups are for your biceps. No, they're not. They're a compound exercise. It can't be for your biceps. And it comes back to what I was saying before. Are you training to get better at the exercise, or are you training that exercise to get better at something else? There's so many things you have to take into account. Don't just plug an exercise in and say, I have to get good at this exercise. I have to move the most amount of weight with this exercise. No, no, no. You have to maximize this exercise so that it carries over to whatever you're trying to accomplish.